Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Thompson. I'm a senior advisor in Natural England's Strategy and Government Advice Unit, working with connecting people with nature. I'm here today to talk to you about the environmental benefits from Nature Tool. What we'll be doing today should be about a 10-minute session, giving you a bit of an overview, explaining a bit about what the tool is, where it came from, explaining to you some of the links for policy areas that you might be familiar with, biodiversity, net gain and green infrastructure, providing a short demonstration, walking you through how to use the tool and how you get results, and then sharing an example of an LPA, how they're referring to the tool and what they're doing, and then ending with some next steps to the tool and how to keep in touch. So in terms of the environmental benefits from Nature Tool, what it is and what it does, the environmental benefits from Nature Tool is a decision support tool. It's for voluntary use, so we need to make clear that there's no mandate to use this, like other metrics, but it's there to help users get more from their project design, getting the most for existing environmental obligations and providing a means to share its wider benefits. The tool itself had its origins in the 25-year environment plan, and it's really there to help work with biodiversity net gain and the green infrastructure standards and framework, providing an optional extra to work with both of these policies. It provides a common and consistent approach that assists decision makers in understanding the performance and the wider impact of their development, and it's designed to be used by developers, planners and local authorities, largely working on perhaps larger projects with strong green credentials or ecosystem service gain requirements. The tool itself has been available in beta form for coming up about 4 years now, and has received 6,000 downloads to date. So a strong response for a voluntary tool, and a good level of experience within each of the major consultancies as well, giving that full understanding about how the tool can be applied. So just taking a step back, I think it's useful just to explain some of the links with green infrastructure and the green infrastructure framework. I think that's very much where the best place to think about where the tool sits. It's part of that family. It's there to support the green infrastructure principle of multifunctionality. It acts as a supporting tool, helping bring together some of the different principles and standards and achieve more. And as such, it has its own webpage within Natural England's Green Infrastructure Framework website. And this contains a series of resources to get you started, from quick start videos explaining a bit more after this call about what it is and what it does, through to a 20-minute video that explains the full process of using it, through to case studies from third parties explaining how they've used the tool and how it's worked for them. And this sits alongside the mapping portal, which we'll come to in a sec. So broadly speaking, how it works is it uses the habitat information from biodiversity net gain, and it links to this contextual information about a place, largely spatial information, to be able to provide a custom output to estimate ecosystem service change. So some of that contextual information might be whether it has landscape designations, whether there's access available on site, the sort of soils which are present, the impact that might have on food production, whether it's in a flood risk zone, whether water supply is high, the kind of factors that you'd expect to see have a bearing on land use change in a particular place. So what it does is it synthesizes this information to provide a picture of change or anticipated change over a 30-year time period from that land use change decision, providing an indicative response as seen by these arrows here, showing projected direction of change over that period across those different time slots. And in terms of what it considers, it looks at 18 different ecosystem services. So for the uninitiated, these are the services which nature delivers to people, and broadly they can be grouped into 3 categories: from provisioning services, the way that we've traditionally thought about land use in terms of supply of food, timber, through to regulating services, the way we're now being encouraged to think more about land use, through from how ecosystem services can contribute towards flood control, cooling and shading, carbon storage, through to cultural services with growing understanding of their importance and the importance that nature can provide in terms of health and well-being. And we've seen that come to a force since COVID. So 18 different ecosystem services all being considered with land use change and the habitats you're putting in place impacting each of those different services to varying degrees, and a tool in place to help you predict what the likely impact of different combinations of habitats in a place will have. So what we're going to do now is just give you a very quick demonstration that will just walk you through what's involved. It's been sped up slightly, but I think you'll get an idea of a relatively simple process here. Video will take about a minute and I'll walk you through from having a completed biodiversity net gain assessment, which is what you'll have in the majority of development cases, through to having a completed EBNT assessment using the tools which are free to use on our website. So this will be familiar to many of you, the statutory biodiversity metric mandated for biodiversity net gain. That contains the habitat information that provides the starting point. That's copied into the EBN tool, which we saw earlier. You then go to the green infrastructure mapping site, you put in your location, and you have a tool available to allow you to draw around the boundaries of your site to collect that contextual information mentioned earlier. You can see that's pulled up on the right-hand side. That simply needs to be copied and pasted into the EBN tool alongside that habitat information mentioned earlier for the baseline post-development work. And that provides the output with the table here, and also an estimate of urban greening factor for your post-development work, making clear those links between the green infrastructure standards and biodiversity net gain. So that was a condensed walkthrough. There are a couple of additional steps, but the broad bones of the principles are there. Taking information from one spreadsheet to the other, collecting your contextual information, revising, and then reviewing your results. So the tool itself has been designed to be relatively light touch to accompany some of those more stretching requirements. But at the same time, we're looking at, how does this fit within the policy framework, within the planning framework? How can this be used, best used? So prior to the call today, just so I had a look around, we know that there have been a number of different LPAs that have looked at the EBN tool. And I think the central Lincolnshire example is a useful one to consider. And what we're going to do here is just sort of look at a relatively recent local plan, how that refers to ecosystem services, helpfully here within the context of B&G and GI policy, as we heard earlier, and then see how that is then being applied within a delivery context within the sort of boundaries of how far policy could reasonably go at this point in time. And then end with an illustration of sort of what's possible and what's come through the process. So here you can see this is 2023 Central Lincolnshire Local Plan, and helpfully here you can see the policy there under a green infrastructure heading, makes reference to biodiversity net gain and support for ecosystem services. So here is the link between ecosystem services and policy, linked to biodiversity net gain under that green infrastructure heading, and then the link here with delivery and the link here with the environmental benefits from nature tool is a prompt you can see on the right hand side requesting those completing the biodiversity net gain statement, asking whether they'd be willing to complete and submit an environmental benefits from nature tool assessment to be able to help them review the potential effectiveness of the tool within planning. So I'm not aware of how far they've been able to get with that review. Prior conversations have suggested that because this is voluntary, the number of potential submissions coming through have been low, as one might reasonably expect. But we are seeing outside of the central Lincolnshire example, within wider planning, We are seeing, and you can sort of, if you Google environmental benefits from nature tool, you're starting to see with larger projects, some developments starting to submit within their annexes their own environmental benefits from nature tool assessment. And one reason for this might be that for some of those larger infrastructure projects, some of the policy wording around that, the national policy statements, are slightly stronger in terms of ecosystem services. So it's starting to illustrate that should there be a stronger policy hook, that flow through from policy to submission of the tool could be clear. But in terms of where we are, next steps, I think it's fair to say that at the moment there's a lot going on within the policy space, and there's an element of wait and see. We're very much looking to continue the journey of embedding the tool with green infrastructure, and as part of the green infrastructure family. I think that's very much where it fits best. Looking to consolidate some of the existing development and the work that we've done in terms of linking up the tool with the green infrastructure mapping and the green infrastructure standards work, and looking to see if we can continue the process of integration, what we've been trying to do with the urban greening factor estimate, to see if we can do something similar for accessible green space standard, an area we've seen quite a lot of interest in. We're currently testing some functionality of major house builder to see how well that process works, and we'll look to report back to PAS on how this progresses and whether there may be potential for further testing. So if you're very interested in accessible green space standards, it'd be great to hear from you. Contact details at the end of the slide. Next steps will very much depend on resources prioritization and direction of future policy, but I thought it might be useful now just to quickly share what we've been talking about, and just bringing into the inside track in terms of what might be possible here in terms of accessible green space. So for those of you which have used the tool before, you have a series of different tabs where you put your habitat information, project details tab at the front, where you put the information about the site in question. What this is doing is just putting an accessible green space box at the front, and using the mapping website that you saw earlier to populate this, to provide a bit of an accessible green space baseline for a particular place. So this is doing the same thing as before, drawing a polygon, but this time querying the information that's held on the green infrastructure mapping website relating to accessible green space, the size and proximity standards, and some of the analysis in terms of need, to provide an output to say within a given area how much accessible green space there is, what proportion meets the mapped data relating to different size and proximity standards, and then how that compares to the analysis against population density and indicates multiple deprivation to be able to provide an implied need. It also looks at ANC's capacity by requesting for a particular development how many, what the new population will be and how many households will be related to that new development, and then use a conversion factor to be able to estimate what the ANC's capacity standard would need to be for that development, and using that information to then compare with the information we're already asking for in terms of area of access as part of a new development, to see what standards would be met. So that's what we've been developing. That's what we are looking to test. We will look to update PAS as to how successful that has been in the integration journey and where things go next. But if you'd like to get in contact, I'll find out a little bit more about what you've seen. I encourage you, in the first instance, to go to the Green Infrastructure website, look at some of the online resources, and then please get in contact at EBN at naturalengland.org.uk, or get in contact with a new contact for the environmental benefits from nature tool, Nicola Brown, who will be taking over from October. Thank you very much.